Hi, Scary Recaps here. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Black Box from 2020. Beware of spoilers. Nolan Wright is watching a video of him holding his newborn daughter. He suffers from amnesia and struggles to remember who he is. Suddenly, a man comes from behind and attempts to strangle him. It's not real. He is awakened by his daughter, Ava, who is helping him with his daily routine. Nolan drives his daughter to school and then goes to his workplace. Kathy, his boss, chats with him. She tells him that his photographs aren't as good as they used to be and that he won't get a contract. Frustrated and disappointed, Nolan visits his friend, Dr. Gary Yaboa. The two men talk and Gary convinces Nolan to go and see Dr. Brooks, a special neurologist. It is revealed here that Nolan's amnesia was caused by a terrible car accident in which his wife died. Dr. Brooks reevaluates Nolan's situation. She proposes the method of hypnosis, and Nolan agrees. Nolan closes his eyes and finds himself in a dark place where suddenly someone grabs his shoulder. He gets up and says that he's experiencing the same thing in his nightmares, whereas Dr. Brooks explains to him that this is a perfectly normal and safe exercise. She also tells him that his subconscious is active and that her treatment will help him retrieve his memories. Nolan leaves, unsure yet as of what to do. Meanwhile, little Ava is waiting for her father, who is late again. Ava returns with her school teacher, who informs Nolan that if he forgets Ava again, she will have to call Child Protective Services. Nolan apologizes to his daughter, but Ava feels that her father is annoyed by her. The next day, Nolan visits Dr. Brooks again. She shows him her black box, a unique processor of memories. The aim of the machine is to put Nolan into many key memories of his life in order to cure his amnesia. Nolan begins the practice, and Dr. Brooks is monitoring the procedure. The procedure is similar to hypnosis. Nolan quickly finds himself in his safe room. Dr. Brooks tells him that from his safe room he can go to any of his memories that lie deep within the subconscious using an analog watch. She also says to him that once he steps into the subconscious, she won't be able to communicate with him. The first memory Nolan dives into is his wedding. He sees his wife, Rachel, but her face is blurred, the same to the rest of the people in the chapel. Nolan gets scared by a humanoid creature that crawls menacingly towards him and promptly returns to reality. Nolan is reluctant to continue the treatment, but Dr. Brooks pushes him to carry on. Afterwards, Gary visits Nolan at his house. They talk about the experiment, and Nolan says that he has seen his wedding. Ava joins them and gets upset by looking at a photo of her parents in the tablet. Gary comforts her. Nolan is having a shattered flashback by holding a chopstick. He decides to take his daughter to a Chinese restaurant and tells her that this place used to be their favorite one. The next day, Nolan enters the black box again. To ease his fear of the unknown presence, Dr. Brooks tells Nolan to say, "I run my mind. It doesn't run me," every time he feels threatened. In the second memory, Nolan calms down his baby daughter and sees his wife in the kitchen, her arm bruised as if beaten. The creature then appears, coming out of the baby's bassinet. Frightened, he repeats the words Dr. Brooks has told him, but with no effect. The thing tries to choke him, and Nolan returns. Later on, Nolan wonders if he had ever beaten his wife. He asks Gary about that, and he emphatically says no. Nolan struggles to remember the secret handshake with his daughter. After he picks up Ava from school, he searches for the apartment he saw in his second memory. He locates the place and goes inside with his daughter. The apartment is the exact one from his memory, but Gary tells him that he doesn't even remember Nolan and Rachel ever living in an apartment. Gary is worried about his friend and checks up on his medical examinations after the car accident. Nolan relives now the memory of the wedding. The scary creature appears again and beats Nolan. In the second memory, Nolan conquers his fear and kicks the creature, knocking it out. Meanwhile, Gary investigates about Nolan's recovery after his coma. A colleague of Gary's informs him that Dr. Brooks took a comatose Nolan to her lab, and when she got out, Nolan was conscious. That sounds suspicious enough to Gary. Nolan's new memory finds him in a hospital bed, wounded and in a critical condition. Before he passes out, he sees the face of a woman standing outside his room. He sees it again in the apartment and in the wedding and realizes that these are not his memories. Nolan looks at a window and sees the reflection of another man. The man assumes Nolan's place and examines his safe room. He's viewing his memories and is revealed that he is Thomas Brooks, Dr. Brooks' son. As Nolan returns, it is clear that Thomas has now taken his mind. Dr. Brooks explains that when Thomas died, she took the data of his consciousness and downloaded them to the black box, waiting for the right patient to upload her son's data into. Thomas tries to deal with this situation, and Dr. Brooks shows him the photos of his family, saying that he now has a second shot in life. Thomas picks up Ava from school, pretending to be Nolan. He tells her that she is not safe and takes her to live with Gary. Thomas approaches his wife, Miranda, and tries to connect with her again. He tells her that Dr. Brooks' dream project has worked. He comes out and tells her that he is Thomas. Miranda gets upset and asks him to leave, but he proves to her that he is actually Thomas. Miranda, however, has erased him from her life. Thomas gets angry and goes to see her daughter. Miranda hits him in the head and knocks him out. Later, Thomas, in Nolan's body, is seen outside Gary's house with his head bleeding. He runs away and goes to Dr. Brooks, searching for an explanation. Meanwhile, Gary searches into Nolan's strange behavior. Dr. Brooks puts Thomas inside the black box in order to get rid of the creature that is now haunting him. Thomas is confronted in his safe room by the thing that is no other than Nolan. Thomas attacks Nolan and prepares to kill with a knife seconds before his detachment. Suddenly, Gary and Ava storm into the room where Dr. Brooks is observing the process. She counts down again, and Thomas sees his last memory, beating his wife and then falling down a staircase to his death. Thomas backs away from Nolan and exits the safe room, leaving only Nolan inside. Dr. Brooks gets Nolan out of the black box, thinking that it is still her son, Thomas. She is mistaken, however, as Thomas is gone. Nolan is back again with all of his memories. He even remembers the secret handshake with Ava. Thomas sits now in the darkness, all alone. Nolan and Ava walk out, and Gary wrecks the machine of the black box. Dr. Brooks is devastated for having lost her son for a second time. Back home, Nolan is happy that he is finally back. Miranda is reading in the newspapers about Dr. Brooks' dismissal. At the end, Dr. Brooks tries to fix the black box and re-establish her son's status. She picks up a sign of Thomas and looks inside the machine. She smiles, implying that her son hasn't been lost after all.